Adolf Hitler. What do I know about Adolf Hitler? Not a lot, so I thought gin and tonic. That'll sort me out. Adolf Hitler, my mum hates him. I can tell you that. She absolutely hates him. Remember, she's 95, so she lived during the Second World War. She was born in 1924, and the World War II started in 1939, so she was 15 when they declared war with Germany. But back to Adolf Hitler. He was born in 1889. He was a perfectly normal boy. He was in the school choir. He liked painting. He liked playing with his brothers and sisters and friends. And then everything went wrong. First of all, he was Austrian. He was not German. He was Austrian. He was born on the border, but he was born in Austria. He was a Bavarian. But in that time, Austrians could become Germans very easily. So that's what he did. His family moved into the German side and he became German. But he was actually Austrian, and he had a very particular Austrian accent, which he had all the way through his life. He did not sound like a German, even though he was the leader of the German party. Okay, back to the story. So everything was fine, and then when he was 11 years old, his little brother died of measles. I don't know how you say measles. The spots. Bidwell or something like that. And he became depressed. He became very depressed, very introverted. He didn't want to do anything. He was a normal 11-year-old boy who was extremely sad. And then he started to have fights with his parents because they didn't know what to do with him. And then everything got worse and worse and worse. And then his parents, one after the other, they died. He became an orphan at 17 or 18 years old. He was on his own, no money, no job, 18 years old, in the world on his own. He was getting free money from the state, from an orphans fund. He was living in a home for the poor. He was probably in the worst situation that anybody could be in Germany in around about 1905, something like that. 1905, 1906. And then he started to get interested in politics. He was just interested in the way that people perceived Germany, and he started to get interested. And when the war came in 1914, when the First World War came in 1914, he was very happy to go and be a soldier for his Germany. And he was an excellent soldier, a really excellent soldier. He was involved in messages, I think. I think he was in the message department. But he got 2 military crosses for being brave, for bravery. So he was a very, very good soldier. He got wounded. He was put in the hospital. He was blinded by mustard gas. This was towards the end of the war. And then when he was in hospital recovering from his blindness, he discovered that Germany had lost the war. And he went blind again with the shock. He went blind with the trauma. So 20 years old now, 21 years old, comes out of the war, but he continues to work for the army services, for the services of Germany. And they decide he's a smart guy. They're going to basically employ him as a spy, because they're worried about this political party. Let's call them Nazis. Their name was different before, but it was the Nazi party. They were worried about the Nazis, so they sent Adolf Hitler to spy. They said, go in, infiltrate, and send us back information. That did not turn out too good, did it? He liked it so much, He became the leader of the Nazi Party. That's the very, very, very short version, okay? There was lots of fights. There was lots of him doing this and going up and becoming number one in the Nazi Party. I think it was called the DAP. I'm not sure. I think it was the DAP. Or SDP. And he got to be number one in the Nazi Party. And then in around about 1932, the Nazi Party lost a general election. And this chap called Hindenburg became president of Germany, President Hindenburg. But Adolf Hitler was very popular. He was second in the votes, and he was very strong. So everybody said, hey, why don't you give him, so they said to Hindenburg, give Adolf Hitler a job. Let's try to make the country unified. So if you join with Adolf Hitler and give him a special job, then he will work with you and not against you. So he made him Chancellor. Chancellor. I don't know what you called a Chancellor here. I think it's like the dean of a university. It's somebody who looks after all the money and looks after the finances. I think that's what his job was. But Hindenburg got sick, and one day before he died, Adolf Hitler organised for the people to change the law so that if a president died, the Chancellor became number one in the country. How clever was that? The next day, Hindenburg dies. Ta-da! The Chancellor is now the Chancellor of Germany. No president, it's the Chancellor. He also did some other tricks, and he got his friends in. 1933, the Nazis, Adolf Hitler, they have power. Smart guy, got himself in there. He wasn't killing people at this point. Well, there were a few here. He's been to prison one time, I think 1923. He was in prison for treason. Treason is when you say things or you do things against your country, against your queen, something like that. I remember I said he was interested in politics. Well, he was saying the wrong things or he was doing the wrong things, and he was put in prison. And he wrote his famous biography, Mein Kampf. No idea how you spell it, Mein Kampf. Don't remember what the translation is, but it will be here. By the time I finish, I will Mein Kampf. It means this. And so 1933, everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. Why do they love him? They love him because after World War I, everybody said the Germans were at fault. The Germans caused all the problems. This wasn't true. According to history books, the Germans were just blamed for everything. But World War I wasn't their fault, but they got all of the negative publicity. And Hitler loved his country, Germans loved their country, and they hated this negativity. So they started to fight back. And one of the things they were not allowed to have was weapons. And Adolf Hitler started to make weapons and build armories together again. And so he was going against the wish of the world, because the world said, hey, you have to be good boys. And he started saying, you know something? We were not the bad boys. And they started building up their tanks and their guns. And then is when his brain changed. His brain became completely obsessed with power. And then Adolf Hitler realized with his, what was the population of Germany, 100 million, 110 million, with this big country, he could make it bigger and get more power and take control of these miserable small countries who had been against Germany for so many years. So they started marching, and again, very, very long story short, they went through France, they went through Belgium, And in 1941, they started attacking Russia, or the Soviet Union at that time. His power went crazy. His popularity, what I was telling before, his popularity was because the Germans were unhappy. They had no money after the Second World War. Everybody was poor. Everybody was fighting for food. And what could they see? The Jews, the Jewish people, had all the small businesses. In England, we had this problem with the Indians. Everybody in the 1960s, 1970s, oh, the Indians have all the shops, the Indians have all the money. When the Germans were saying, the Jews have all the shops, the Jews have our money. And Hitler started making people believe the Jews were bad, the Jews were taking their jobs. It was pure racism. The Jews were taking their jobs. And this is how he convinced them that Jews were bad. Very similar in Colombia. 2, 3, 4 years ago, everybody was saying, poor Venezuela. Oh, those poor, poor, poor Venezuelans. 2, 3 years later, when they're all here and they're taking jobs and taking food and sleeping on roundabouts, everybody's saying, go home to Venezuela. We don't want you here. It's just a natural way of thinking. It's a horrible way of thinking, but it's natural. When somebody's taking your food and taking your jobs, you have an automatic reaction to get rid of them. So that's what he did. He attacked the Jews. The history books will tell you all about the Jewish concentration camps. I think 6 million Jews they killed. It's a completely other story, terrible story. It did happen. It did happen. I promise you, I have met people who have been in concentration camps. So thank God, around about 1945, I think it was April 1945, the English with Winston Churchill, the Americans came in eventually after 2-3 years, and they eventually pushed them back. And Adolf Hitler, now it gets interesting, supposedly committed suicide with his wife, and he was burnt in a rolled up carpet. Have you watched History Channel? I think it was History Channel. There was a series called Hunting Hitler. There are so many theories, good theories. Good theory doesn't mean it's true. A good theory means the theory has a lot of evidence. There are many good theories that Hitler escaped. And, spoiler, they can prove that he went from here to here to here to here, across in a submarine, Argentina. He was in Argentina in this house, then here. They found his medicines. The last place we can trace Hitler to is Bogota. That's where he ended up, theoretically. So there is the short version, 13.5 minutes, of the life of Adolf Hitler. I missed a lot out because there's so many, not boring details, there's so many details, and too many details is boring. But no, he was not born a monster. No, Germans did not vote for a monster. He became a monster. And we tell these stories so that we can remember how to recognize a monster in the future. Thank you for listening.